Still having a craving for the early Minecraft days? Let me guess, 100 days wasn't enough to scratch that nostalgic itch. Well, if you haven't seen that first installment, catch that video up, subscribe, and come back to this video for more. Because, after much deliberation, here is the long-awaited sequel. Stick around and you'll see even more classic gameplay, bigger retro builds, and another good old-fashioned world tour. All reminiscent of Minecraft's golden age, beta 1.7.3. After rejoining Rootland for the first time in a long time, on day 101, I said hi to Clay again. I hope he didn't miss me too much. I marveled at my bridge I built in the first 100 days and chucked some cobblestone into some furnaces, as I already had a new build in mind that would require some smooth stone. But the first thing I wanted to do on this beautiful morning was address a comment that kept getting brought up in the last installment, that I didn't build the infamous Herobrine spawner correctly. Supposedly, there was supposed to be a mossy cobble block underneath the netherrack. Who gets to make these rules, I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, I wanted to get it right to pay respects to this ancient Minecraft monument. So I walked up at that leisurely beta 1.7.3 pace, all the way along the bridge and up the mountainside. I'm pretty happy with being a whole gold block richer now, anyway, but who knows how it will impact the totem's effectiveness. Not wanting to waste any more time on my first day back, I grabbed all of the cobble from home and meandered up to the mountain the bridge connects up to. The plan was to clear out a space on top of the mountain to put a little castle/kingdom wall around. What I'll end up building in the walls, I'm not entirely sure yet, but we have about 99 more days to figure that out. Irritatingly, I had to turn off fancy lighting because the clouds were fogging up my vision around this Y level, but actually I was pretty excited by this, as I thought it might make the kingdom look like it was occasionally resting on clouds in the sky. I was, however, nervous about the block height limit, but hopefully that wouldn't impact my building plans too heavily. But all this heavy planning made the afternoon of my first day back slip through my fingers. Luckily, I was treated to another gorgeous sunset from the top of the mountain tower. Boy, have I missed this sight. Day 102, it feels good to be living in this world again. Environmentalists, avert your eyes. There were many trees in the way of my big corporate plan that I needed to get rid of. I'm gonna build a fucking Walmart. Nah, I'm just kidding. A Target. When I began cutting down bigger trees, I realized how irritating it was gonna get to flip back and forth between fancy and fast lighting because I couldn't see the wood blocks of the tree I was trying to get rid of stuck between the leaves. I sympathize more with deforesters every minute more I play this game. The view from up on this mountaintop is exquisite. I feel so lucky to be working on a big project in such a beautiful location in this old version of Minecraft. On day 103, I connected the would-be wall to the tower to make the beginnings of an entrance into the future walls of this mountaintop kingdom. I then followed the lay of the land to start creating an outline for the kingdom wall, waking up on day 104. I carried on building the outline of the wall. I'm still constantly so enamored by how nostalgic the bright green grass texture always makes me feel when I'm playing beta with fast graphics on. You'll notice I switch back and forth between fast and fancy graphics in these recordings for all the reasons I've mentioned earlier. I hope it doesn't bother you too much, and comment down below which you prefer. You can probably tell that I'm literally cutting corners. Mining for cobble isn't something that I want to spend all of my time doing, and I know these walls are going to be fairly tall, so each corner counts. Wow. I finally sympathize with a billionaire company CEOs trying to cut as many costs as possible. As evening came, I began putting down the outline of the inside wall. This ain't gonna be no 1 block thick, pathetic bitch-ass wall. Jesus, Stuart, yes. On day 105, I finished this inner outline and realized that a lot of the trees on the inside of the walls would need to go too. Actually, all of them. Sorry again, environmentalists, but I wanted to get a good lay of the land I had available to me up here. Afterwards, I'll go about planting some trees here again, just like all company CEOs promise. With my diamond axe hanging on for dear life, I managed to finish chopping down the last of the trees on the mountaintop. Nature 0, Stuart 1. On day 106, I became aware the world block height might become an issue, so with F3 equipped, I started planning out the max height of my wall. I made the wall go up to Y117 so that if I wanted later on, I could build watchtowers or tall buildings that went higher than it. Then I started building up the wall to that height. I also threw some mossy cobble detail into the entranceway walls. I decided to take a break from the wall endeavor and meander back down to my main base. I noticed that on long stretches of walking, my finger was still held down on the shift key very often, even though it obviously wasn't making me sprint in this version. When back home, I made a small extension to my storage system with some fences and chests and slipped into bed. On day 107, I wanted to finally get some green grass on my floating island. Taking the idea from a comment on the previous 100 days, I decided to push a grass block up to the island with a piston. I spent a hot minute failing to remember how to craft one, and once I figured it out, began the slow process of placing, pushing, and breaking. By midday on day 108, I had reached high enough to change my piston pushing direction toward the island. I slotted the grass block into the island's side as Subwoofer Lullaby faded in. Every time this version of the game's exclusive C418 soundtrack starts playing, I can't help but lightly sigh and lean back into my chair with a smile on my face. Now I just have to wait a little while before my island was blossoming with grass. To pass the time, I went mining for cobble with the bonus of whatever ores I ran into. I resurfaced on day 109 and put a chest in the dock nearby my house for more storage in different areas. The thing I've learned playing beta is that the more storage you have everywhere, the better. You simply don't have time to go back and forth long distances for every little item you need without the sprinting mechanic. So better to store your stuff where you happen to be at that time. I worked a bit on the entrance to the 2B Kingdom Wall and carried on with this on day 110. Utilizing mossy and regular cobble, stairs, and different kinds of slabs, I was pretty content with the result. I then began working on the wall itself. My plan was for the base to be mostly cobblestone, and then I planned to fade it into regular stone the higher the wall went. As I was walking back to my main base, I noticed the grass on the floating island had spread quite nicely, so I swam up the water stream to give it a more lively feel with some bone meal. I spent the entirety of day 111 mining, somehow bringing up no new diamonds, but successfully breaking my diamond pickaxe. I've said it before and I'll say it again, diamonds feel so much more important and so much more rare in this version of Minecraft. After spending a costly 3 diamonds on day 112 to craft a new shiny pickaxe, I brought the freshly mined cobblestone to the mountaintop to continue working on the kingdom wall. I knew I wanted to do something with the long flat face of the left wall of the kingdom, but I wasn't so sure yet, so I filled it in with cobble for the time being. Seeing the old cobble texture against the bright green grass of the mountaintop made me unexpectedly well up with nostalgia a bit. You know that feeling when you step back and start to see the image of your build come together? Yeah. I just got hit with that feeling. Later that day in the strip mines, I thought the game was finally balancing out all the mining sessions I had done without finding any diamonds. Little did I know, it was a vein of 1. I passed into day 113 down there, and once I started hearing cave noises, I was suddenly very happy I wasn't playing the Cave Dweller mod anymore. Finally. The game did start balancing out my luck. I found a full, beautiful vein of 8 shiny blue gems. I resurfaced on day 114. Always good to see sunlight again. I set some cobblestone to smelt and headed up to the kingdom, where I began interlacing some smooth stone into the currently pure cobble walls. I carried on doing this into and throughout day 115. It was quite a mundane task, but having the Minecraft track play in the background made it incredibly peaceful and relaxing. On day 116, I, believe it or not, carried on in this vein, at least until I ran out of smooth stone, at which point I walked down to my base to collect the cobble I had set to smelt. I got to admire my beautiful luscious sky island on my way down there. I dawned on a new iron chestplate, feeling too poor to craft more diamond armor for the time being. I woke up on day 117 and continued work on the kingdom walls, adding some mossy cobblestone to its base all the way around its perimeter. On day 118, I completed more of the smooth stone upper half of the wall and added some cobblestone texturing to that section. I designed the wall so that it was 1 block thick, so that a hypothetical guard could walk through the kingdom walls on duty, so I started placing down a wooden flooring between the walls. While it is a bit difficult to walk through the walls smoothly as you get knocked back and forth, it gets the job done. I got the feeling of wanting to add a lookout point from within the walls, just so those schizophrenics know they're not alone, you know? No, but actually, once I noticed the opening I had made created a perfect view onto a nearby hilltop, I knew I would have to build something on there that would give the guards a reason to have this lookout. On day 119, I added another lookout point to the next corner of the walls, but it didn't quite have the same useful angle. Oh well, hopefully we have some hobbits on duty. I managed to finish all the wooden flooring of the inner wall and meandered back down to my base to collect more of the smooth stone I'd smelted. I couldn't take my eyes off of the bridge kingdom view. I felt that the leap I had taken in the last 100 days with this bridge was really paying off. I built up the stone wall to its desired height and got a beautiful view of my base area below. Now I just need to get this height of the wall to be even all around the kingdom. I broke some more cobblestone texture into the wall and started placing torches on the inner wall once evening fell, so that guards wouldn't get unwanted co-workers walking around them at night. Once I ran out of torches, I retired for the night. And on day 120, I went back down to my main base to collect more smelted stone and craft a bunch more torches. As I was building up the wall a bit more, I glanced over at the nearby hill, trying to conjure up ideas of what to build there. I wanted to make the mountaintop the kingdom was on look a bit more lively and interesting, so I got some dirt and bone meal from my main base and grabbed some wood and wool to test out an idea for a build on that hill across the valley. On day 121, I bone mealed the entire perimeter of the wall, and then made my way over to the nearby hill to test out an idea I had. The kingdom walls were looking really solid and imposing from this distance. campsites. I noticed a big open cave entrance on the hill and decided that would need to be safely covered at some point. I crafted some fences and started testing my idea. The plan was to have a collection of tents as a campsite on this perimeter, almost as if a band of raiders or bandits were looking to breach the kingdom walls. Basically, I wanted to cosplay as Guts, but anyway, while I liked how the tent was coming along, I realized I just did not have enough wool. I also came to the conclusion that if I was to use wool in any large quantity for any future builds, I would need to start making much more of a habit of shearing sheep whenever I saw them. Since I couldn't keep working on building tents, I decided to make a communal campfire for the group of bandits. Initially, I was worried making a wooden slab outline of the fire would burn the whole campsite down, but then I realized wooden slabs are treated as a kind of stone block in Beta Minecraft's code. On day 122, I brought the one netherrack I needed to the campsite and lit the fire, adding a very homey feel to the place. I also finished off the first tent with some wool I sheared off a sheep the previous day. I thought some gravel pathing would make for a nice addition to the campsite and make it feel more lived in. I also added some bone meal to the same end. I checked out the view of the bandit camp from the castle lookout holes and decided I had made the right choice of what to build on that hilltop. Back at home base, I noticed that with the fast graphics on, water doesn't look as smooth as it usually does. On day 123, I added as much more stone to the wall as I could, but I realized another mining trip was inevitable. As I was leaving the kingdom walls, I started to get a good idea of how imposing it would look to approach the gates, and I was very pleased with my work thus far. Still much to be done though. I crafted a new shiny pickaxe and descended into the mines once more. Strip mining accompanied by soft C418 tunes is always such a peaceful endeavor. That is until a cave noise cuts it out. I could have sworn I heard something walking. Jesus Christ, creepers look creepy in low lighting. I guess that makes sense. After I got rid of it, I was about to continue my strip mining mission, but I heard something moving about up there. Holy shit, it's running. Nothing can run in Beta Minecraft. Not even the player. I don't know what the fuck that was, but I sure as hell wasn't sticking around to find out. I'd never been so nervous with how slowly I moved down these long strip mines. Anticlimactically though, I surfaced as usual. A bit shaken, but ultimately I realized there must have been some beta bug that causes a walking sound file to play too rapidly is all. After smelting some more cobble on day 124, I added a bit more to the wall. I wanted to make the cliff faces the kingdom was sitting atop pop out a bit more, so I added some dirt flowing over the edges. If that sounds like a weird idea for adding detail, just let me cook for a minute. I tabbed out of the game to make sure I was still recording properly, and a pretty weird thing happened. It was as if my A key was being held down and I was slowly flinging myself off the mountain. Once I made the game full screen again, I was sitting in a valley with 4 of my hearts gone. These beta glitches really are something. As I was going around the mountain, I got a glimpse of how the added dirt made a more 3-dimensional cliff face. I hope those who doubted me understand my vision now. I took the opportunity of falling off the mountain to head back to main base and gather some dirt and smooth stone. And on day 125, I almost finished the kingdom walls. So close. Waiting for more cobble to smelt, I added some more dirt to the cliff face around the walls. Nightfall came in the midst of this, and on day 126, I finished off my dirt additions. I took some steps back, and I really liked how the cliff looked with the added dirt. I added a few final torches to connect it to the mountain. Nope. Touches, not torches. The fuck? I added a few final touches to connect it to the mountain and bulked up the perimeter of dirt the kingdom was sitting on. Getting tired of all the back and forth trips I had to do to smelt all this stone, on day 127, I decided to add my first building to the kingdom, a smeltery. I placed down some stone slabs, and when I ran out of those, used cobble to fill in the outline of how I wanted the smeltery to look. As I was crafting a metric shit ton of furnaces, I got spooked by a cave noise on the top of a mountain. Can't escape them no matter where you go, I guess. I tested the look of making furnaces the base block of the building to save on stone, but after realizing that looked fucking stupid, I decided to put them inside the building instead. I put all the new furnaces on a trial run with some food and stone. With the final pieces of necessary smooth stone on day 128, I finally completed the wall, the main structure at least. I still wanted to add some detail and height variation. I had enough smooth stone to finish off the base of the smeltery and lay out some flooring inside, adding 2 crafting tables for practical use. It was a little cramped, but overall I was really happy with how this first building of the kingdom was coming together. I added some ladders going to the top of the wall because I knew I wanted those hypothetical guards to be able to walk along its perimeter on top as well as inside. To that end, I added some wooden slabs for them to walk along. I also started adding some of that height variation I mentioned earlier to give that fortified look. While I was doing this, the The bandit campsite caught my eye, and I decided to add some of the wool I had collected to the tent poles. I arrived by nightfall, and by the time I had built a bed, sleeping was already clearly in vain, so I spent some of the time lighting up the area a bit instead. After which, I began work on the big double pole tent. After running out of wool to build with, I was about to give sleeping another shot when I was ambushed by a skeleton. I killed it and decided to make my way to my main base instead of trying to sleep out in these dark woods. Clearly, I'm not cut out to be part of the Man of the Falcon. After I woke up on day 129, I descended into the mines to once again gather cobblestone and ores in a long straight line. Once I ran out of inventory space on day 130, I turned around to make my way back to the entrance. Whenever I'm walking back from a long strip mine, I have so much time to ponder thoughts and consider what my mind thinks about while I hold down the W key. Somehow, without the feature of running, it becomes quite therapeutic, honestly. On day 131, I finally started making use of the smeltery in the kingdom and chucked stacks of cobble in there. Hopefully the trips back to main base would be less and less necessary. I placed a few more torches on the inner wall and finalized what I wanted the design on top of the wall to be, an alternation between stone slabs and smooth stone blocks. Hopefully it would look alright from afar. The smeltery was already proving to be very useful, and once I had a bed and a chest somewhere up here, I'd have little need to leave the kingdom walls for resources or sleep. On day 132, I began work on the main kingdom gate. I gave it a 3-dimensional arch-shaped design using smooth stone and cobble. I connected the arch to the ground to give the entrance a more bulky feel. Looking good, looking good. I wanted to place fence posts down to make it seem like the gates were open but could be closed, but I forgot you can't place fence posts down in the air. And before all of you beta professionals rush to the comments to tell me that there's another way to get the fence post to be attached to the roof of the entrance, yes, don't worry, I figured that out later. Figuring out beta Minecraft's glitchy mechanics is interestingly one of the more fun aspects of playing on this version. Jesus, what is up with these cave noises up here? I mimicked the shape of the arch on the inner wall and then carried on varying the height of the perimeter. Looking at the front wall from the back put my mind at ease that this design choice was likely a good one. After using the smeltery to make more stone slabs, I carried on with this wall design throughout day 133. I also lit up the entranceway and added trapdoors leading from the ladder to the walkway. Jesus Christ, trapdoors seem to take longer to mine than obsidian. On day 134, I took a step back to watch the sun rise above my beautiful mountaintop kingdom. I walked over to the bandit campsite and added some more wool to the build and noticed how well the cliff face and jagged wall looked together from afar. While I was adding this wall to the tents, I thought about how long-term of a vision you had to have to use certain items in this version of Minecraft. You couldn't farm any animals, so gathering wool just had to require small but consistent effort in order to be effective. In my opinion, it can be irritating in one sense, but also rather satisfying once you've accumulated enough wool to use on the build you had in mind. It also makes the world feel less controllable, as if you are subject to its elements, which you have to learn to play in tandem with in order to build or do what you want to accomplish. And of course, this is all before the hunger bar, so it wasn't really necessary for animal farms to exist. Overall, though, I think I would have preferred if animals were breedable in this version. I don't think it would have taken away the feeling of beta too much. You're welcome to let me know your thoughts in the comments too. Anyway, getting back to the task at hand, I remembered I wanted to close up the big hole in the ground around the campsite, so I started closing it up with some wooden slabs. I still wanted there to be an entrance though, as if the bandits were using the cave to gather resources. On day 135, I finished off this entrance, completed with a trapdoor entryway, torches, and a warning sign. It looked like a pretty steep cave to me, right? I added some more gravel detail around the camp and completed the third and final tent, for now, anyway. Back at the kingdom, I carried on work on the smeltery, deciding to go with a stone slab roof with a big hole in the top for all the carbon monoxide to escape through. I went with a kind of jagged roof design, making the build feel a little more brutalist. I finished this design on day 136, and I was pretty happy with how the glitchy beta lighting made it look like there was soot. Fuck. And I was pretty happy with how the glitchy beta lighting made it look like there was soot clogged in the smoke shaft. Chimney? Do you mean chimney? I also added some leftover stone slabs as jutting out discs of stone, just for the sake of a cool design. I finally started filling in the wooden walkway of the inner wall, so all the hypothetical guards on duty could actually walk the top perimeter. I decided to excavate some of the higher layers of dirt so that the wall would feel higher from the inside, and also so that within the walls the land felt more even in height. I also filled in some dirt in a corner of the walls to that end, and decided a watchtower of some kind would fit comfortably here. I wanted to make it my first build to reach the block height limit. On day 137, I nerd pulled up to the block height limit for the first time, taking in my gorgeous 360 view. I went ahead and built a small lookout platform at the top of this tower. There were now officially 3 layers of vantage points out of the kingdom. With my incredible vision from up here, I spotted a creeper within the kingdom walls. How could this have happened? It's as if there was a dark spot within the Walls, fuck, I forgot to light up the inner walls. After jumping down heroically and cleaving the creeper in twain, I very slowly traversed the darkness. I creeped, no pun intended, around every corner, placing torches as I went. But the only scary thing to come out of the darkness was a cave noise. All was safe within the walls. This whole endeavor reminded me to finish placing down the flooring for the upper part of the wall. You can now officially walk the perimeter of the Kingdom Wall while gazing at the beautiful view from atop the mountain. On day 138, I messed around with different designs of a staircase leading up to the watchtower. I finally decided that a staircase wouldn't work in such a confined space, and a ladder would have to do. I realized with the way I'd constructed the base of the watchtower, there would be room underneath it for another watcher's quarters. I placed down some ladders to the platform and a door on the quarters. On day 139, I finalized the design of the watchtower lookout perch, and knowing how important natural lighting is in beta Minecraft, left a hole in the middle of the roof for a trapdoor. I decided there were still too many changing layers of dirt height within the walls, and culled off a whole layer. On day 140, I added a bed to the high watcher's quarters, as well as some wooden flooring. It's a pretty tight fit, but I think it's cozy and works well. The time had finally come to do something with this face of the Kingdom Wall. While not even being sure of what I myself was doing, I went with the good old-fashioned build an arch shape and worry about the details later plan. At the top of the arch, there was a spot perfect to place a special block, and I had just one in mind. The gold block that used to be sitting underneath the netherrack of the Herobrine spawner is now officially in use again. I'm really fond of the old ore block texture. On day 141, I put some fences down without really being sure what I wanted them to be keeping in or protecting just yet. I added some stairs to the arch for detail, but before I started work on what would be within the walls beneath the arch, I had an epiphany. Those fences I broke earlier were floating. I just had to pilot the fences from the ground to where I wanted them, and then break the fences beneath the ones I wanted away. I rushed to the kingdom entrance with some freshly crafted fences to test this out. Sure enough, I was getting the desired gate effect I wanted out of using this method. This is another one of those satisfying moments I was talking about earlier, when you learn to use this version's bugs or mechanics to achieve what you want. Not to say it wasn't irritating in the first place though. There we go. A completed gated entrance to the kingdom. I broke open the entrance below the arch I was working on to see how I wanted to connect it to the kingdom and the walls. On day 142, I kept mining this circular shape through the walls to see where it would cut into the inner kingdom's landscape. Once I noticed it was way below ground level within the walls, I got an idea. I would make this area a prison cell. That way, the guards would always be close by, and it would give a reason why the bandits are camped out so close to this side of the kingdom. They know they can't breach the walls and take the kingdom, but they hope to at least rescue their comrades from their imprisonment. Damn, this really is turning into a Berserk parody. I made the room long enough to leave space for 2 beds, and on day 143, I let the prisoners decorate their walls with some posters. Only 1 block high posters were allowed so as to not let any Shawshank Redemption shenanigans occur. I then placed some sturdy iron doors down and realized I just locked myself out. Then after remembering levers exist, I put some of those down and had a functioning prison in place. I put some dilapidated detail into the walls and closed off the prisoners' fenced view. Prisoners within it or not, the view from this cell is gorgeous. On day 144, I decided the ground level varied too much in the kingdom walls and eviscerated most of another layer of dirt. On day 145, I shaved away a bit of the next layer near the smeltery to give the build some breathing room. I then decided it was time for me to try my hand at a custom tree in beta 1.7.3. Damn, bars. Seeing as wood blocks couldn't be placed sideways, the roots would never look much like roots. But otherwise, building was actually a bit easier, not having to worry about which direction the blocks would be going. Okay, I ran out of wood and it looks pretty silly right now, but just let me cook again, okay? On day 146, I decided I wanted to make a forest in the valley between the bandits and the kingdom. If these bandits really were trying to successfully rescue prisoners, they would need some cover between their site and the kingdom. Plus, I could farm a few of these trees when needed. See you environmentalists, I'm not all that bad. The kingdom walls, watchtower, and luscious cliff faces were all working majestically well together. On day 147, I saw the view of the kingdom walls from the cathedral was especially pleasant. I chopped down a few trees from my growing forest and planted many more, don't worry. On day 148, I carried on work on the custom tree. I wanted to make it have a droopy willow sort of vibe. Trust me, it'll look better when the leaves are on it. Which reminded me, I would need to shear some trees later. For the time being though, I worked on the entrance pathway, breaking some dirt away and placing some stone slabs down. I then descended the mountain and shaved off some trees for their leaves. As I was doing this to the second tree though, I realized keeping the wood from the trunk would be a better idea and cut that down too. I placed the first few leaf blocks down, and as I was heading to the High Watcher's bed, I realized that the clouds passing through the kingdom would now look like a spooky mist permeating throughout the lower dips in the ground level. I thought this lucky block I decided on would add a really cool dynamic atmosphere to the kingdom once it was completed. On day 149, I finished adding the droopy leaves to the custom tree, and as I stood back to admire it, I was pretty happy with the final result result. I added some torches for lighting under the canopy and some bone meal around it for decoration. I carved out a pathway that I wanted to extend from the kingdom's entrance to all the builds I do in here, so naturally I connected it up to the smeltery, and as I was continuing to connect the path to the watchtower, I got the feeling that that flat length of wall on the right side of the kingdom could be made into some kind of smaller entrance, so I carved out the pathway leading in that direction as well. On day 150, I began the archway of another entrance. I didn't want it to be the same kind of imposing design as the main entrance, but rather a discreet alternative way in and out of the kingdom. I bulked up the entranceway with some cobble stairs and broke through the outer wall. I then mimicked a similar kind of entrance shape on the outer side and connected the gateway to the inner wall path. On day 151, I did the fence trick again to achieve the effect of the gateway being closable. I bulked up the outer side of the entrance as well, and overall I was pretty happy with how it turned out. As I was extending a path leading from the outer entrance, I realized the kind of lighting that would look perfect here. You might guess what I'm thinking if you've seen the previous 100 days, but fucking what? But it would require some, but it would require some glowstone, which I was sorely short of. Oh boy, another venture to my favorite place. I donned on some new iron armor and put away all unnecessary items in case I were to meet my untimely demise. Seeing the sun was going down, I decided to try and sleep in the haunted bed under the cathedral once more. And wouldn't you know it, I slept with no problems whatsoever. Weird. Good to see my favorite desolate wasteland again. It's been too long. Not wanting to overstay my welcome, I got straight to work clambering up to the chunks of glowstone lighting this hellscape. Holy shit, the ghast sound effects are not distant dependent in this version of the game. It sounds like 10 of them are surrounding you constantly, so when one finally does attack, it catches you completely off guard, as you can probably tell. Sprinting to my portal, I was happy to escape the nether with some glowstone and my life. I farmed some of the sugarcane just in case I needed any later, crafted the 2 glowstone that I needed, and headed up to the kingdom to place it. I smelted some sand and used the glass to complete my typical design for lighting a staircase like this. On day 153, I extended this pathway, making it look weathered and broken at its end. I added some lighting to the top walkway of the wall and walked down through the valley of the growing trees to add some more gravel detail to the bandit campsite. On day 154, I crafted a bunch of stone slabs and filled the pathways connecting the 2 entrances and the smeltery. On day 155, I added a pressure plate button system so that the smeltery wasn't perpetually sitting open. I extended the pathway to reach the watchtower, which made it feel like there were enough pavements in the kingdom, and now I needed to start thinking about filling in the gaps. On day 156, I filled in the path I'd carved out and added some lighting to the watchtower's platform. I then explored the caves I discovered within the mountain. The first shoot off of the cave revealed a dead end, but the second had 1 block open at its final wall. I peered through and saw utter blackness as a horrifying cave noise washed over me. Breaking the hole open wider and placing some lighting down, I saw grass? I opened the hole wider and found there were all sorts of monsters ready to greet me. This place was an incredible, weird phenomenon that I didn't expect to find in such an old version of Minecraft. Or at least I didn't expect to find grass after descending into a cave. It seemed as though there was a small entrance on the far side of the grassy cave where the greenery had spread through. A really cool and unique piece of generation. But not wanting to interact with the monsters too much, I left the odd grassy cave behind and climbed out the way I came in. I spent day 157 chopping down some trees in the open. The type of house I had in mind to build was going to require a lot of oak wood. The kingdom walls seemed to look awesome from every angle I looked at them. I began the foundations of the house I wanted to build and promptly realized I didn't really know how to build this kind of style. I'd never tried it before. You'll see what I was going for as the video and the build goes on, hopefully, anyway. But in case you know it by name, I was going for a half-timbered German-style house. The style involves the top of the house leaning over its base and would involve a lot of wood and wool. Luckily, I had gotten into the habit of shearing sheep every time I saw them. Even with the wool in place though, it wasn't exactly coming together yet. I decided it would need 1 more layer jutting out from above the second. You can probably tell I was quite timid with how I was building this. That is because again, I had never built a house in this style. But it seemed like a pretty obvious style to test out with the blocks available in beta. On day 159, I bone mealed around the house, dug up all the dirt inside it, and replaced it with a nice wooden flooring. At least the entrance was coming along nicely. I decided the owner of this house was going to have a back garden with a small stream running through it. I fenced off the area and on day 160 gathered some water and completed the stream. I put a cute little bridge over it and decided the owner would also have a small wheat farm. I then gave the back garden a little bit of lighting and on day 161 a proper entrance. I added some texturing to the stone base of the house and began work on a staircase leading to the theoretical second floor. In need of more cobble, I descended into the mines once more. After getting pretty lucky, I resurfaced on day 162 a whole 13 diamonds richer. Finally, the scales of strip mining luck were tipping in my favor. I brought some of the coal I had also mined up to the smeltery and continued work on the staircase leading to the second floor. On day 163, I built up the outer wooden walls of the house some more and placed down the beginnings of the second story floor. I was gathering some sand for smelting near the end of the day, and I encountered some clay. Having totally forgotten that bricks were a major part of beta architecture, I collected it, hoping to implement it into my builds at some point. On day 164, I went on another tree chopping spree. Environmentalists, I think you know by now that I'm not actually sorry. I found a beautiful, vibrant lake during my deforestation session and let my thoughts wander as I stared at the view. And on day 165, I went ahead and started chopping it down. Evil laugh. I wasn't supposed to say that. I had walked a long way on my tree felling trip, and I was really enjoying the new scenery. Eventually I found my way back home, and added some way to store my belongings up in the kingdom. Hopefully this would also save more back and forth trips to the main base. On day 166, I added some windows to the first floor of the house. I added a table and chairs near the window, and made a makeshift fridge next to it. However, this was a fridge in design only. It couldn't store much of anything. On day 167, I tried to make use of it, but it did look a bit odd seeing a fridge on fire. Suddenly, something was triggered from the far recesses of my mind, and I remembered that Stampy once made a working fridge in his lovely world. Inspired by this ancient memory resurfacing, I walked down to my main base and crafted myself a dispenser. I placed the bottom furnace with said dispenser, threw in some mushrooms, I am not rich enough to stock anything else in there, and voila, I had a working, dispensing, and storing fridge. I finished off installing the second floor and added some lighting to the now much dimmer first floor. On day 168, I added some windows to the second floor and added a double bed for extra fanciness. I then began work on the roof, which would have to ultimately connect all these jutting out sections together. Have Minecraft Sunset Colors always looked this beautiful? After some tweaking of the initial roof angle, I figured out a way to connect these very differently heighted roof sections together. With every different angle of the roof requiring a slight rework of the design, I was proud that I ultimately got all different heights to link up by the end of the day. On day 170, I started adding some lighting to the second floor and slowly closing off the ceiling. I added some decoration near the bed and worked a bit on the roof. On day 171, I decided the ceiling would have a skylight to maintain some of that natural lighting. I took a panoramic view of the house from the ground, and I was very, very pleased with how it turned out, especially for my first time building in this style. I messed around with some streetlight designs, but decided I would go with the traditional black wool and torches villagers would go on to use in later updates instead of glowstone. So on day 172, I dyed some more black and tested the look out. Yep. Hard to beat that classic feel. Unfortunately for me, I only had enough ink sacks for 2 blocks of wool, so on day 173, I decided to go on a multi-purpose adventure. I figured I would find squids probably around the same area I would find clay. The block type, not the dog. The dog clay has been in the same spot for the last 100 days or so. He's definitely not getting lost anytime soon. Anyway, as the towers faded into the distance, I set off on my mission. While I did find quite a fair amount of clay, I had absolutely no luck with squids. It was like a desolate, watery wasteland out here. After I'd given up hope and sailed back to the dock, a shoal of squids very kindly spawned into existence just meters away, only to meet my sword, unfortunately. On day 174, I started smelting a metric shit ton of clay and built the remaining streetlights I wanted. I then began work on the base of the next house. I bone mealed the surrounding outline to make the build look settled into the plot of land already. I wanted to do it in a similar style, but this time incorporating a big fireplace. I wanted to do it in a similar style, but this time incorporating a big brick fireplace. So after I'd put the usual layer of wood down, I cut it off so that only the first half of the house had this design. I wanted the back of it to be mostly stone to make it feel sturdy and harboring a fireplace. On the front half though, I went ahead and did the same kind of wood pattern. Without realizing it, however, I created an abomination. Christ, Among Us truly has ruined a generation. Despite discovering this horror, I persevered and finished building the main wood block structure of the front of the house. I added some stone detail to the base, and on day 176, I installed a double doorway. I spent the rest of the day chopping down trees. On day 177, I raised the stone part of the build to roof height and installed the floor on the ground level and a staircase going to the second floor, which I also began laying down. On day 178, I acted on my desire to have a brick structure in my build and built the base of a fireplace. I would need the rest of the brick smelting in my main base to finish it off though. I ran down, grabbed it, fed the furnaces some clay and fed clay some meat, and then I turned a bunch of my sugarcane into paper and harvested some more. I wanted to have some bookshelves in the house I was working on. I felt it would work well with the aesthetic of the fireplace. After forgetting how to craft books again, I got to work installing the bookshelves on day 179, along with some netherrack for the fire, which I lit beneath my feet. Nice one, fucking moron. Then I finished the second floor and installed some windows downstairs. It was looking really lovely and cozy in this house, and adding another double bed really helped bring that feeling home. On day 180, I started work on the roof using the same building tactics as I had with the last house initially. I added some double doors to the bedroom to give it some privacy. After working on the roof a while, I realized that the design I had used for the last roof would only partly work, and I would need to change something for it to look good from the street. On day 181, I created a kind of overhanging roof effect, which I didn't have a lot of faith in at first, but ultimately I found to look pretty great in the end, so I stuck with it. I also found a matching design for the overhang of the stone section of the house I was happy with. Then on day 182, I started connecting the wooden roof to the stone part of the house, which visually would hopefully bring the whole build together. On day 183, I carried on in this manner, finally connecting the two sections of the house under one roof. I also saved the bedroom from incredibly dim lighting by adding a skylight. I took a step back from the build to appreciate it. It's fairly different from the first house, but they work really well together. On day 184, I added another level of bookshelves to the house. Happy with the house as it was, I took a strip mining break to gather more cobble for the next theoretical build in the kingdom. I started laying the groundwork of this build as dusk came over Rootland. On day 185, I continued. The reason I was building this cabin, which may seem a bit different in design to what I was going for with the other houses, is because every main world of mine I've had over the years has included a wooden/cobble cabin like this. Hell, even when I joined other people's worlds for the first time, I usually instinctively went ahead and built this design for my first base, often varying in shape and size, but almost always using oak, cobblestone, and glass as the only blocks. It seemed fitting that in the world that is meant to be a return to my roots in Minecraft, that I included one of these cabins somewhere in Rootland. The one thing I did do differently with this cabin was add a fence outline. I just thought it would look cute and make it seem more like a property. I went out chopping trees that night thinking I could handle the elements, but after an explosion and all sorts of different attacks, I retreated to the kingdom walls. Clearly, iron armor isn't good enough. At nighttime, the clouds really felt like a foreboding mist rolling in through the gates. I had some unwanted visitors within the gates, which made me realize how poorly lit up the kingdom still was. I should probably try not to spend too many nights out here. On day 186, I made the cabin surroundings a little prettier and placed down the best indicator of a player's true home in this game, a crafting table next to a furnace. I decorated the interior some more and completed the roof of the cabin on day 187. After adding some glass into the window frames, the cabin was complete. I added a gravel and cobble path leading to the main street and bone mealed it to look weathered. I then did some terraforming over into day 188, as I had decided to turn this section of the kingdom into a kind of pond. After filling it up, I realized some natural water elements such as clay would fit really well in it. I went on another clay hunting adventure, and on day 189, I brought the clay back up to the kingdom. My girlfriend, who was looking at my screen over my shoulder, suggested I add a few bookshelves to the second floor of the first house to fill the space some more. I also gave the pond a pebbly outline with some gravel. On day 190, I bulked up that bookshelf a bit more and added some clay under the water of the pond. A subtle but worthwhile touch. I couldn't believe this world had already seen 190 days. These in-game days fly by when you're really excited by a project like I was. I added some fence post torches and another street light to hopefully make mob spawning less likely at night, and I used the darkness of the night to spot out any obvious dark patches and light them up. On day 191, it was finally time to build something in the last empty plot of land in the kingdom. I wanted to do something with brick again, but with it obviously visible from the outside. I landed on building a bakery with a nice big chimney. I laid out a simple small entrance and a framework of cobblestone. I laid wood on top of this framework, and just as I stepped back to admire my new build coming along, I heard the one sound all Minecraft players know and hate near a build they've been working hard on. After almost bursting into tears, I realized it blew up in perhaps the best location it could have within the kingdom walls. Guess I didn't light this place up as well as I thought I did. I replaced the stone slabs and dirt and did a bit of tree mining before retiring for the day. I noticed I really couldn't tell what time of day it was inside the second house, so on day 192, I made a little window for ease of vision. I gave the bakery a big window so that it looked like an inviting store and installed some flooring and an oven section. I added another smaller window to show off a cake the bakery had made, which reminded me I still needed to bake my first cake in Rootland. I added a counter and a chest for a hypothetical salesperson and started installing a cobble roof, which I finished with some slabs on day 193, leaving some room for a 1-block skylight for that sweet natural lighting. I was really happy with how the exterior and especially interior turned out. Very cozy in here. There was one last issue though. I needed to bake a cake, and for that I would first need 3 wheat. No problem, didn't even have to leave the kingdom to get that. Next, I would need 3 buckets of milk. I couldn't source that quite as locally, but it wasn't too hard to find some cows. Then all I needed was to craft 2 sugar from the sugarcane, and finally, all that was left was 1 egg. Surely I had an egg lying around somewhere. No, not there. Not there, nope. Holy shit. The one thing I can't just go mine or craft was the one thing missing. On day 194, I went on a chicken hunt, or to be more specific, a hunt to find a chicken and just follow it around. Christ, I couldn't believe I had to spend my last couple days in this world for this video, waiting for a chicken to shit out an egg. Huh? I took a break from chicken babysitting and decided to spruce up the area outside the prison. I placed a few saplings, and on day 195, I bone mealed them into full spruce trees. I then spent almost the entire day waiting in vain for a chicken to lay an egg. I also lit up a pathway through the forest in the valley, so the bandits had a route to follow at night. On day 196, I finally decided I was rich enough to don on a full set of diamond armor. I had enough diamonds, and plus the world tour was coming up soon, and I wanted to look my best as I showed off the world thus far. I have to admit, I look pretty good in this. Doesn't matter how many diamonds I had though, I still couldn't get a chicken to lay an egg. I thought trapping it would help, but by the time evening came, I realized that was in vain too. I even waited on chickens in the middle of the night. No luck. For some reason, the last couple of days in these 100 days installments have always been spent chasing some kind of animal for materials. On day 197, I found the entrance to that grassy cave I found earlier. It was right next to the valley below the kingdom. I decided to say fuck it and let me check it out. It's not every day I have a full set of diamond armor on. Damn, I could take those hits. That combat session felt really fun. Wouldn't have expected beta Minecraft's combat to be something to write home about, but after feeling so weak this whole playthrough, finally getting to utilize full diamond gear, something really satisfying. On day 198, I was finally wealthy enough to put some actual meat in the fridge. I went back to waiting around chickens, and after waiting for the entire day, I finally heard the sound I had been waiting to hear. With the final piece of the cake puzzle found, on day 199, I installed a crafting table in the bakery and baked my first cake. I happily put it on display in the small window, which looked very enticing from outside. I farmed the bakery some wheat, made some bread, and wouldn't you know it, a chicken plopped an egg out right here in the kingdom as soon as it was no longer needed. With it being the last day before the world tour, I fixed up a few minor details in the roofs of the buildings. Finally, I woke up on day 200, ready to tour the world. I wanted to do this world tour a bit more like the classic tours that most beta players do on YouTube, not like how I did it last time with a voiceover. So I walked down to my main base to begin the tour and dropped this voiceover in favor of real-time commentary, as I showed all of you how far this world had come in 200 days. So I never thought I'd record this not in post, you know, like me talking over this world, but I thought I'd do a world tour that was more reminiscent of the ones you find on YouTube, the beta world tours you find on YouTube, which are people just going through their beta world that they've had for a while and explaining it, just giving a general tour of the world. Pretty laid back experience. So I thought I'd do the same on the 200th day in this beautiful world. Hopefully before the day's end, but otherwise we can go into the night a bit. This is of course my starting area, which all of you will know quite well if you've seen both 100 and 200 days, and my beautiful dog Clay. I'm sorry I haven't found him a companion yet, but once I get more bones and stuff, I will attempt to do that. I made this house by this lake over here because I thought I would do a lot of building around the lake. Turns out that I didn't do any more building around the lake, as it happens. I do have a little sugarcane area here though, and a wheat farm beneath a sky island, which I finally managed to put some green grass on. This is the cathedral, if you remember from the 100 days, is the first building I built aside from the main hub, and has a few interconnecting areas. Here's a useless animal farm pen, which doesn't work because you can't lure animals in beta, and I didn't know that at the time. So it's just empty. This is the spooky cathedral, which is also a nether connector. Haven't done anything significant in the nether enough to bother going through there. But below I have sort of, I guess, maybe a priest's quarters situation to admire some paintings, have some bookshelves, and having a bed in the middle here, having some chests on the side and stuff. It used to be the haunted bed that you couldn't sleep in and you would get woken up at night by monsters. It sort of fixed itself when I tried again during the 200 days, but I was pretty happy with that. Oh god, there go the nether portal noises. If we go around either way, you'll see that there is a connecting... okay, well, We can't take the connecting bridge, but there is a connecting bridge that leads to some sort of spruce forest, man-made spruce forest I made there, over this little lake, and wraps around to my mineshaft entrance, which is just your generic strip mine. Goes down to Y11, has a bunch of jutting off areas, and hopefully the idea is that I get a bunch of diamonds, etc. Yep, there's the cave noises. This is the first huge project I undertook in the first 100 days, which I was kind of like, go big or go home, and so I started building these huge pillars and making this giant bridge connecting it to the mountain, even though I had no idea what I was going to do with that at the time. And this is a small fisherman's hut market thing, which is pretty bare-boned in terms of, you know, its surroundings. It feels a bit out of place just having one thing here, so I'm sure I'll work on the lake a bit more in the following 100 days, if people so desire one. If people want 300 days in Minecraft Beta 1.7.3, make sure to comment that and subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you follow this bridge here, you get a pretty good view of the my home and the sky island and the cathedral. There's also some desert behind there, which I'd like to mess around with. Some desert building behind there. But obviously, again, we'll have to wait for a later video, if so desired. And then the second tower sort of cuts through the mountain intentionally, so you can sort of climb up to the top with a fair amount of ease. And up here, I have the infamous Herobrine spawner, which I properly fixed up at the start of this 100 days, the 200 days, because the last time I forgot to put the mossy cobblestone in the middle, apparently. Aren't I uncultured? And if I follow this path up here through the clouds, we have the castle walls, which is entirely new. Entirely a 200 days event. I'm really, really proud of this area. This is a memento to my first house of pretty much every world I build in, because what I would usually do is take some trees, because I had chopped down a bunch of trees, and I probably had cobblestone by then, and make this very generic looking cavern in different formats, different sizes, different, you know, layouts and stuff, but ultimately it would always have this pattern at the start of most of my worlds. So I thought I'd build a little memento to that inside the castle walls here. This is the first and only custom tree in the world, and I'm pretty happy with it. I probably want to do more in the future. This is the bakery next to the smeltery, I guess, or maybe the armory. And if you go inside, you can see there's some cake on the window, some ingredients to make cake in there. And I'm overall really happy with this, especially with how quickly I built it. It was not my usual amount of time taken to make a building, which is usually quite a fucking while for me. And inside the armory we just have a metric shit ton of furnaces, even hiding over here in the bottom row. And this so that people don't die of, you know, carbon monoxide poisoning, I guess. These are the two houses. I can't decide yet which one I prefer, because I really like this one's fireplace area. I'm not too much of a fan of the crafting place area, but the bookshelves work really nicely, and it comes up through the house. And it's very condensed here, and it feels like the room layout makes sense. Not too much space wasted. But over here we have the bigger house, which has a really cool little system going here. I'm quite happy with this. You press a button, the door opens, and and lags your game, and flings out a item of some kind. An item of some kind. Most of the items, unfortunately, are mushrooms because I'm poor. But you know, it's the thought that counts. And out back here, we have the small wheat farm, which is used by the bakery to make all its bread and cake. And if we follow up the stairs here, this is the bedroom and a slight library, bookshelf situation. This is sort of what I was talking about, is this house seems like it wastes more space than the other one. I'm not entirely sure what to put here. Doesn't seem like anything really fits like a good diagonal build to put here, so I decided to just leave it at the bookshelf. But I am really happy with this house from the outside. From the inside as well, but definitely the outside is the highlight for me. Oh my goodness, I wish I had a bone for you. Oh man, Maybe I will wait and... Oh, okay, come on. You got this. You got this. It's got to happen one time. One time. Work with me here. Damn. Okay. Worth a shot. Under here, we have the higher watchman's... The high watcher's quarters, which is very contained. And he likes collecting dirt, apparently. And if we go all the way up to the highest... This is the building height, by the way. The top of this roof. You can see way across the land here. And I'm pretty happy with how this place looks, from above especially. But we can also go over the castle walls like this, sort of take a vantage point, and you might see a sort of camping area over there. And that is because these are bandits camping out, trying to attack the castle, but not for what you might think, not because they are eager to claim the castle as their own or rob it even. That is what they tried already. Now they want to cut their losses, get their people, and go home. And what I mean by get their people is the prisoners that have been taken captive within the castle walls right here, as you can see. Which is sort of taunting them having the prisoner set up over here, I guess, is what it might look like. But it's more that they set up camp over there because it was the closest side to the prisoner setup in the castle walls. And there is a little Easter egg. I guess maybe it's not really an Easter egg, it's more like an observation. But, some nice music is coming in. There is the quote-unquote Easter egg of the back of this house here. Sort of has a gutter situation. You can see into the prison if you angle yourself correctly. That is the prison down there. Night has fallen, which I know you might think, oh no, terrible thing, because how are you gonna properly display the campsite? It is pretty well set up for a nighttime exploration, as it happens. I have adorned myself with diamond armor for this big world tour, for this big finale. There is... Okay. Okay, alright. Thank you. Hey, I did get bones. Too bad the dog's gone. I'll keep it for next time. I put some torches along this man-made forest because I assumed, the bandits living up here would know this forest pretty well from their attempts of getting into the castle, use it as cover often, etc., etc. And this is where the... Okay. Very good. This is where the bandits stay. Oh god. Okay, alright. Let's calm down. Everybody calm down. I'm a professional. Boom. Didn't stand a chance. Boom. Diamond armor, bitch. Doesn't hurt me. I don't want to stay here too long lest a creeper blow it all up, but you get the idea. Sort of pitched tents and a few sleeping areas. Oh, kind of just one at the moment, I think. Oh god. Okay, let me try these skeletons. Oh god. Oh my god. Oh Jesus. Good lord. It's hard. It's tough out here. Yeah, you can see the castle from below here. It looks really menacing because it sort of blends in with the stone of the wall, which I think is really cool. What the... Oh yeah. This is an accidental Herobrine tree from when I was... Fuck me. From when I was farming for tree leaves for the custom tree up there. What the... Was this a back entrance into the... I knew there was a cave inside here. I didn't know there was a... What the fuck? A what? I didn't know you could open books in beta. There are other worlds than these.